Pokemon Legends Arceus is a brand new entry in the Pokemon franchise that brings the series closer to modern RPGs, makes the catching more dynamic, and carries a serious and dark tone in its story. These elements and more breathe life into the world of Pokemon, and it is the best Pokemon adventure so far. The story of Pokemon Legends Arceus follows the main character, Ray, who is the boy, or Akari, who is the girl, as they help Professor Laventon create the first Pokedex. Whichever character you don't pick will be present as a friend and rival in the story. The story takes place in the past and in the Hisui region, also known as Sinnoh in the modern day. This is a very different time compared to the other Pokemon games. People do not know much about Pokemon, and many view them as terrifying creatures or even deities. The central hub for this game is Jubilife Village, a place familiar to those that have played Pokemon Diamond, Pearl, Platinum, or the recent remakes of Diamond and Pearl. As a member of the Galaxy team, the player leaves Jubilife Village to explore other areas to find more about Pokemon. In these large and vast areas, the player learns more about Pokemon by capturing and fighting them. Throughout their journey, they also encounter noble Pokemon which must be stopped with bombs. With interesting characters, a darker story, and large environments, Pokemon Legends Arceus takes the storytelling of Pokemon to another level. I have to say this is my favorite Pokemon story to date. Previously, my favorite was Pokemon Sun and Moon, which gave the characters expanded roles in the story. You could even say this goes back to Pokemon Black and White, which had the gym leaders show up more often throughout the story. In a story sense, Pokemon Legends Arceus reminds me of Pokemon Sun and Moon, just because once the characters are seen, the story is not done with them. I would say this story is the most detailed Pokemon story as the characters have their own relationships with each other. They're not one-dimensional, they feel closer to people. Things are darker than usual, and the characters will often remind the player that Pokemon can be dangerous and how little they know about them can be scary. I would recommend for players to go into this game without any spoilers. I was genuinely surprised by the story at multiple points and found it addicting. The gameplay in Pokemon Legends Arceus has changed the Pokemon formula drastically in some ways, while also having elements of the old games. Catching is a lot more dynamic. Players can throw a Pokeball at a Pokemon in the overworld and just catch it. That's it. No battling required. This does not work for every Pokemon as each Pokemon reacts differently. A Pokemon like Bidoof is docile and will not run away if approached, while a Pokemon like Starly will fly away at the sight of the player. Some Pokemon might be easier to capture by battling first, and others might need to be snuck up on. Pokemon can now attack the player as the player has their own health now. If a Pokemon becomes aggressive, the player can roll out of the way, avoiding harm. There are a variety of items that can be used with the new capturing mechanic. The player can black out, and if this happens, they will lose some of the inventory. I do wish the player just had a health bar. Instead of having a health bar, darkness appears on the left and right sides of the screen to indicate damage. If it turns red, the player is about to black out. The catch rate of Pokemon seems higher than usual, which makes sense. Some Pokemon like Magby rarely appear, which was extremely annoying to deal with when I tried to capture one. If there is one strong aspect in this game that stands out above everything else, it has to be the catching. Throwing Pokeballs and catching Pokemon is the most fun that it has ever been. It is so satisfying throwing a Pokeball at a Pokemon in this game. It is also satisfying to be able to throw your own Pokemon out in the same way. It was so much fun that I did it over and over again when I first started the game. Game Freak made catching Pokemon fun to the point where I was catching Pokemon just because I was enjoying it. The battles in Pokemon Legends Arceus are somewhat similar to the way that they have always been. Two Pokemon fight, they have types, they have moves, and that is about it. There are no held items in this game, and for the most part abilities are gone. Also, there is an attack order now which is able to be displayed in every battle. Sometimes a Pokemon can move faster than the other one or attack twice in a row. Moves used by Pokemon can now be used in Agile or Strong style. Agile style moves have less strength behind them and make it more likely for a Pokemon to move faster, while Strong style moves have more strength behind them but make it more likely for a Pokemon's next turn to come later. For the most part, the battle system was fine in this game. I did watch a video explaining the battle system, and the basic point was that it was unfair. I can definitely see that. In this game, speed is important, and if a Pokemon can move first, it might be able to take one of your Pokemon down. Being able to move twice in a row is also unfair. For some Pokemon, 2 turns is all it takes to bring down another one. I did want to say that every battle gets black bars on the top and bottom like they are movies or something. I was not a fan of this. There are also noble Pokemon throughout the game that must be calmed down with bombs. These Pokemon serve as the game's version of boss battles, and this is something entirely new to this series. For example, Kleavor, a Pokemon from previously released footage of the game, moves around swinging its axe-like arms. The player has to avoid these arms and throw bombs at the right time. These boss battles have a mix of throwing bombs and battling. The noble Pokemon get very creative, and I really love that Game Freak did something completely different here. It was fun figuring out how to beat these Pokemon. Some of these battles are not easy too, so they provide a challenge for new and returning players. I blacked out during some of these battles. I'd love to see noble Pokemon or something similar return in future games. The Pokedex in this game is small with only 242 Pokemon, but it works out pretty well. A lot of things in this game appear to be done for a reason, and I believe I understand why there's only 242 Pokemon in this game. For one, this is based on Pokemon Diamond and Pearl's Pokedex, so there would have to be an explanation as to why some Pokemon from other regions would even be around. It did feel like a few of the Pokemon were starting to repeat as I went from area to area, so that made me want more Pokemon in the game. The game has new Hisuian forms, such as Hisuian Growlithe and Hisuian Braviary. There are also new evolutions such as the previously mentioned Kleavor. The starters are a mix of various generations and have new evolutions, which was a very cool idea. I like the new Pokemon. Having new Pokemon forms and evolutions is always a bonus, and if there is ever another Legends game, I just want Game Freak to do more of this. Having brand new Pokemon made every step in this game a new mystery waiting to be uncovered. Pokemon Legends Arceus is the first game in the series to have large environments similar to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. The game does not have one big open world, but instead is split up into large sections that can be visited. I thought the sections looked good and varied, with some having high elevation and a variety of themes. Each area is filled with Pokemon, and that is about it. I would say that the Pokemon are the main focus of the game, and oftentimes you'll be facing them instead of another human. Battles with other humans do not occur too often because they do not fit into the narrative of the game. Players can move across these environments with Pokemon such as Weirdeer, Stantler's new evolution, Basculegion, Basculin's new evolution, and Hisuian Braviary. I really enjoyed using Weirdeer, and it was my main form of transportation throughout this game. Basculegion was fine and comes with the perk that the other Pokemon do not have. The player can catch Pokemon while using Basculegion. Hisuian Braviary was a bit annoying to use because, for one, this Pokemon cannot ascend and only descends in the air, but the biggest problem with Braviary was the accidental falls that happen with this Pokemon all the time. As I mentioned earlier, the player can take damage and black out. Braviary and the UI design may play a large part in this. Graphically, I thought the game looked fine. Sometimes the game looks great and other times not the best. The Pokemon truly come to life in the areas of the region and feel like real animals. The characters look good, the Pokemon look good, and the cutscenes looked great. Even the player character felt alive and felt like a real person. I didn't notice that Pokemon in the distance or high in the air did not move as fluidly as Pokemon right in front of the player. I personally do not mind, but it is noticeable. The Pokemon chugging along in the distance does not happen often. Pokemon Legends Arceus is an interesting twist on the Pokemon formula from the story to the gameplay. The intro of the game can be a little long, but I did not see that as a negative. The game spends time setting up the world and the characters within it. The game also teaches new mechanics during this. I never knew that Pokemon Sun and Moon had complaints about its intro, but I thought that part was enjoyable. I just wanted to point this out because certain changes were made in Pokemon Ultra Sun and Moon, such as making the intro shorter. Throwing Pokeballs really made me feel like I was a trainer in the anime. It was fun to throw my Pokeball and let my Pokemon come out and interact with each other. I will say that this game does not let your Pokemon walk behind you. I have never been a fan of this feature, but I thought this was one game that actually needed it. This game feels like Game Freak's attempt at a more modern RPG with the story, involvement of characters, actual dungeons, and overall presentation. Some moments in the game are just there for you to focus on the story and the world. I really enjoyed those moments. I do think that some moments with the characters could have been even better with voice acting. I've been saying this for a while, but Pokemon needs voice acting. With more detailed characters in Pokemon Sun and Moon, and the literal non-verbal singing in Pokemon Sword and Shield, this series has been well overdue for voice acting. While funny moments in this game made me smile, they could have been elevated even more with voice acting. The characters in this game can talk quite a lot, and not having lines voiced, especially when there are voices, well, grunts for the main character, just seems like a weird decision. Why add grunts but no voice acting? The cutscenes and character interactions show that if Game Freak leans onto voice acting, they will have something truly amazing on their hands. The marketing in this game is very much what the game is. Pokemon are terrifying creatures, complete the first Pokedex, etc., etc. The hub of the game is Jubilife Village, and it is always the hub. I think it would have been cooler if the main character established settlements or found more settlements throughout the story. Don't get me wrong, there are some humans out there, but I just wanted more. Jubilife Village is quite big, which is nice, but the player can only run through this area. This is annoying, and I went through most of the game without knowing that the village had fast travel to certain points. This made moving around the village somewhat better, but I wish Pokemon such as Weirdeer could be used to move around, or there was more fast travel points. The music in the village did get a little annoying if I spent too much time there. There is quite a bit of side content in this game. Villagers have requests that the player can do, which usually involve finishing a Pokedex entry, giving away a Pokemon, finding an item, and more. I did not do a lot of these until beating the main story, and they often came off as fetch quests. Some were fun and others weren't. These are meant to be done while playing the main story because some expand the shops in the town. The post-game also offers a very good story. I will not be getting into this story at all, but I will say that some of the requirements for the post-game were annoying and part of the reason why my hours in this game got so high. The game offers a lot of customization, likely due to how the Pokedex is in this game. There are no HMs or TMs in the game. There is a reason for that. Additional moves that are not learned naturally can be purchased. There are less trainer battles. There's a reason for that too. The fact that the player can change the time of day kind of gives them the power to change the weather too. Pokemon can be evolved at any time when they hit the requirement, but it is up to the player to do so. Nicknames can be changed at any time, and Pokemon moves can be changed at any time or for a payment. All of these features are important to the game. Most of these changes are okay, but I miss TMs as they were easier to work with instead of learning from a move trainer. Another problem with the moves is that the Pokemon not instantly being given the option to change their moves. For example, if my Starly got a new move, I have to go into the menu to change it. I miss when I could learn the move right away. The game has a map that the player can mark so they can walk to wherever they need to go. This is a very helpful and great feature, but I wish my player could move from location to location more freely after beating the main story. For whatever reason, after going to an area, the player must return to Jubilife Village always before going anywhere else. Also, before showing off the Pokedex at the Galaxy Team building, the player is shown their own Pokedex every time. This made no sense. I did not like the UI or user interface in the game. I often found myself throwing a Pokeball when I meant to throw a Pokemon. You can easily switch between these two menus, but in the heat of the moment, it is not very user-friendly. As I mentioned earlier, it is easy to fall while using Braviary and trying to switch to another Pokemon or accidentally using Braviary. Switching between the rideable Pokemon could have been better. At times I had to reach over my controller just to switch Pokemon. Saving is not as quick as it is in other Pokemon games. You have to go into the satchel and usually press R to move over to the right to get to the save. That's because your satchel, ability to save, Wi-Fi preferences, and settings are all in one menu. A menu like Pokemon Sword and Shield's menu would have been better, or just a way to quickly save like older Pokemon games. Instead of running being automatic, this time it's done by clicking the stick, and it doesn't feel right. Online trading is in the game. Online battles are not. This seemed like a weird choice. There is a system where players can save the items that they lose when they black out. The other players can pick up your satchel, For the most part, the system works, but it has taken days for some players to help me out, so I wish the items returned naturally if a player ended up waiting too long like myself. Overall, I loved this game and was glued to it from beginning to end. I finished the main story at 31 hours and the post-game at 71 hours. My times might not be the standard as I spent my time exploring, catching Pokemon that weren't in my Pokedex, and just having a great time. Pokemon Legends Arceus was addicting and I spent long hours playing the game. I would often explore the whole area before finishing the story. I would say the third area was my favorite story-wise, with the fourth area as a very close second. The large areas can feel intimidating, but with these two areas, I really wanted to sink my teeth into them. It is funny that I cannot put this game down as I did not share the same feelings with Pokemon Brilliant Diamond, which came out a couple months ago. I already gushed about the catching, which was fantastic and something that I cannot emphasize how fun it is. The story is Pokemon's best and the involvement of all the characters with their varying personalities was so nice. I did end up completing the Pokedex as I loved the game that much. This was fun, but later turned into an annoying task that took too long. Some Pokemon are rare or have to be approached slowly. My buddy, Magby, ran away twice before I was able to catch one. Flying Pokemon were also extremely annoying to catch to the point where I evolved the baby form instead of catching the flying one. I did all the requests for the characters. One of them in particular was extremely annoying to do, and I'm sure people that have played the game know which one I'm talking about. While I did most of this request, I did have to look up help and look up a few others too. Some of them required too much tracking things down and they were not worth it. After completing the game 100%, there is nothing left to do. Perhaps fully completing the checklist and the Pokédex will be fun for some, but I will not be doing that. I do not know if I want Pokemon to fully go in this direction. The open world is fun to explore for the most part, but I think I would leave this to the Legends series and keep the main series as it is. Maybe a mix of the styles could work too, but I do not want full Legends gameplay as the main series. Pokemon Legends Arceus is the best Pokemon game of all time. It has been a while since I enjoyed a video game this much. If you are a fan of Pokemon or curious about the series, you should be playing Pokemon Legends Arceus. And don't you forget, Pokemon are terrifying creatures. Whew! This was a long review. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I sat down for around 2 hours and wrote this script. There was a lot to cover and I feel like I was actually condensing and cutting out some of my thoughts. I did not put this in the review, but at points this game reminded me of New Pokemon Snap, and I thought, wait, don't I already have this Pokemon? It turns out I did, kind of, but it was in New Pokemon Snap. Reminding me of New Pokemon Snap is a good thing. That's a positive for this game. Anyways, that's it for me. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you like my content and want to see more, be sure to subscribe. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter and like me on Facebook. The links are below. I'm Sinnoh11. See you next time. And peace out. I really hope people watch this. This was extremely long.